It is the year 1999. Solway Lass is 97 years old. She is about to embark on her delivery voyage from Darling Harbour, Sydney to the Whitsunday Islands. Jim needs a captain and crew that are capable of sailing this old school vessel. And the problem is that these old tool ships are complicated and there's not many people that actually know how to sail them.
I introduced myself as a person that knew the vessel, and what do you guys know about tall ships? So I got the job and I produced 4 crew that knew the ship and knew a bit about tall ship sailing, and they brought down a bunch of crew from the Whitsundays who knew about sailing but didn't know about tall ships. So we managed to form a crew, split it up into watches.
My sister and I come aboard as volunteer sailors, expecting an easy trip, and we're in for a rude shock. The vessel was absolutely disgusting. The bilge was full of rancid fat. It was swarming with cockroaches, and the toilets would squirt me with things that I don't want to think about every time I tried to flush them. The hold had been completely stripped out, and the vessel wasn't seaworthy. She had too many issues. So instead of setting sail, we had to spend weeks in dock cleaning up the boat and getting it seaworthy. We had to sleep on the deck and just hope that it didn't rain.
We spent a lot of time in Sydney preparing for the voyage, making sure she's going to be seaworthy, pulling the anchors out and cleaning out the anchor locker and some really dirty stuff there, preparing for a trip up.
Finally, we set sail from Darling Harbour, heading north up the New South Wales coast, and initially, the Solway sailed beautifully, handling well in the moderate seas, and I was in heaven. But once we got past the point of no return, we got hit by dangerous, stormy weather. This is when I had my first encounter with Captain Anderson. Down in the cargo hold, while the boat was rolling around, I felt all these cold chills. I could feel there was someone there, but I couldn't see anybody. Maybe he knew chaos was coming our way, and he was there to see if we could save his boat.
It was a wild and stormy night, I remember that.
The boat was rolling heavily. Waves were breaking over the deck. Crew had to tie into safety lines so we wouldn't get washed overboard by the heavy seas. Conditions deteriorated and started getting dangerous. The officers of the boat were starting to get worried. We were off the New South Wales coast and there was no nearby harbour suitable for a large vessel like ours.
That's a nasty part of the New South Wales coastline, you know. People don't really understand about it.
Our only option was to try and get Solway Lass into Crowdy Head, a tiny little town with a little fishing jetty and a breakwater that was not suitable for a large vessel like ours. But we had no choice. It was either get into Crowdy Head or lose Solway Lass and our lives to the storm.
Because Crowdy Head's tiny. Crowdy Head's like a man-made harbour that's really built for the local fishing fleet. And we had to get in there because the weather was turning really bad.
The crew tied me onto the helm so I wouldn't get washed overboard, and I had to steer the boat to the entrance of Crowdy Head. I thought I was going to die, but somehow we made it there, and then to our horror, we saw that the entrance to Crowdy Head was tiny, and there was massive surge coming through. Mark, in a real good display of seamanship, surfed Solway Lass in through the entrance of Crowdy Head.
We came in through the entrance, and then we had to do like a 360, and then we had to back in to the only wharf that was big enough to hold us. We had tyres over the side fenders to protect the hull, and then we had a whole series of mooring lines. We had to make sure that the mooring lines were long enough to deal with the surge, big tides and the surge of the storm that was coming through. So it was like a spider web. But I mean, I didn't sleep at all that night. Mate, the ship was literally surge coming in and out of that harbour. We were like a seesaw, and we had maybe 3 mooring lines part throughout the night, and I had to get up in the middle of the night and replace some mooring lines because they were just snapping. That was a nightmare.
There was a lot of surge. We kept tying the boat up, breaking ropes, and in the end, we put a rope right across the entrance to Crowdy Heads. And the only way we could keep it from ripping the dock down, because the dock was starting to wobble. So that's how we did that.
Captain Anderson must have had a great time watching the captain and crew scramble to try and save the ship as that heavy-duty hull bashed up against the tiny little dock. I still can't believe that we managed to save Solway Lass, the dock, and ourselves. With the ship in good order, squared away, and sailing in calmer seas, I now had time to fall in love with Solway Lass. There's almost nothing more beautiful in this world than a square rigger under sail, and when properly trimmed, Solway handles beautifully.
That's when we learned what a good sailboat this is. She handles really easily, this boat, for considering what it is. It's got a lot of prop walk or pulls to port in the back, so it makes it very predictable and pretty easy to handle. Consequently, it's surprising for being 150 or 200 tons, depending on whether I'm on it or not.
I felt so lucky to be able to do such a long voyage on this 97-year-old pirate ship, surrounded by experienced sailors. Our next stop was the ultra-rich town of Mooloolaba. We had a few problems with the locals not wanting our beautiful old pirate ship to come in. However, eventually we got permission to tie up in front of the refuelling wharf. This felt like some sort of insult, but if you know Mooloolaba, the refuelling wharf is directly in front of the local nightclub. So you had an historic pirate ship tied up directly in front of the local nightclub in a yachting town. And it was Saturday night. A lot of sailors had a very good night that night.
And the crew ran amok, of course. They managed to develop some relationships. In fact, some of the girls were imported up to Airley Beach. Some relationships were formed on board the vessel as we went up too.
On the way out of Mooloolaba, we nearly rolled Solway Lass over.
So with Mooloolaba, there's swell, right? So what you do is you time in between the sets of the waves. The next set started to come through, and then she rolled. She rolled bad. That's when the tips of the yards touched the water. But I tell you what, mate, we were packing death. And then after that, it was good. It was smooth sailing all the way. I remember the weather absolutely calmed down.
Solway's next stop was the beautiful Northwest Island. She dropped anchor with her ancient winch, and the crew put ashore. There, they found young green sea turtles hatching from the sand, and some of them had wandered into the island, dehydrated, and lost their way. So the crew spent their day collecting all the dehydrated turtles and putting them back into the sea. We then sailed into Airley Beach via the Whitsunday Islands. We came in with all the sails flying to put on a show for the locals.
We parked her up at Shute Harbour, and another refit commenced there by the new owners.
Jim then got to work fitting Solway with her beautiful cabins and decking her out for her new life as a charter boat. He then unleashed Solway Lass on the Whitsunday Islands. So you had one of the most beautiful and historic ships in the world sailing around some of the most beautiful islands on Earth. Captain Anderson was in heaven. He had an unlimited supply of unsuspecting tourists to scare and torment, and a hard-working crew to terrorise and disrupt whenever he got the chance. In 2002, this is how Solway Lass celebrated her 100th birthday, bringing happiness, adventure and excitement to thousands of guests, while still managing to pay her own way through life, like the working girl that she is. Solway Lass worked as a successful charter vessel for a quarter of a century.